Let's see. What are you most afraid of?
What am I most afraid of? That's a good question. Well, let me say what I feel like I don't have fear of first, and maybe that'll help me think of it. So when I first moved out west, I was living in California, in LA, and I moved out there with my college boyfriend, which wasn't the greatest idea because we should have broken up first and not gone there together. But you know, those things happen, and I definitely learned a lot from it. But what ultimately ended up happening was we broke up on a vacation in Greece. Not the place I would recommend to break up. But then I decided when I went back that I wanted to like move to San Diego alone and take a year off of grad school and just kind of like start over. And at the time, all my like friends were pretty much mutual college friends with my ex, and I kind of felt like I had just outgrown all of them. So it was kind of like a situation where I was like, you can have him, I'm good. And just like, you know, more or less cut all of them out of my life and started in San Diego from like zero, like blank slate. And within, no, like literally the first day, made friends at like, actually one of the girls I met the first day I was in San Diego was one of my best friends still, like definition of like a day one, A1 kind of friend.
Yes.
So everything just literally started working out perfectly, and everything just started falling in place, and all the like anxiety and stress and depression I had been feeling the whole time I was in LA just evaporated. And I felt like I was finally in like the right place, and things that I had envisioned for myself in terms of like just having this like chill life, which again, I said that I left, but at the time it was really what I needed. And more girlfriends, and just like kind of doing the fun stuff that I feel like I had seen other people doing in LA. It all just started to fall in place and kind of like magically happen, and I felt like I kept being in the right place at the right time. And that was a time in my life where I really felt like I was in control of what was happening and the way that things played out, and like manifesting things. So that is kind of touching on like part of my spirituality, is feeling like, you know, you have to really like let go in order for things to work, but there's also a certain amount of control you can have by letting go, which sounds weird, like just surrendering instead of trying to force it. So anyways, I think like between doing something that most people would be way too scared to do, like moving to a new city where you don't know anyone, I didn't have a car, a job, a place to live, like I just figured it out. Ended up working out really great for me. So I have to just tell myself anytime I do something scary that like it's gonna work out. And sometimes it takes a lot longer than I want it to, and I'm really impatient, but I always have like that faith that something is gonna work out. And you know, whatever kind of situation arises, however it does end up playing out, that I have to just like adjust to that. And if it is something that I don't want, then like change something and make it into something I do want. So, you know, for me to say, oh, I hope I wish one day I could like get paid to travel, that could totally happen. Like I'm a blogger, also, like I said, work in a nonprofit. I have kind of like a varied background of nonprofit issues or humanitarian issues that I'm interested in. I think getting paid to travel and blog and also do nonprofit stuff all in one is like very doable.
Very possible.
It's something that's like not so like such a stretch. Yeah. So what scares me?
Probably not having control, right?
I don't know. I mean, I think that like I do like to control things, so it's kind of like an antithesis. And also I feel like as much as I love living here, I feel like it's created like a lot of stress for me.
Yeah.
It's a much more like stressful place to live.
This is a very stressful area.
And I get more road rage. The driver's stuck here.
Yes. I'm a monster on the road.
Yeah, and I think that like a part of me has like from time to time lost sight of my ability or like need to surrender and like manifest things that way. And so, you know, I have to keep reminding myself of what I'm capable of and what I've done already in my life and like proven as possible. So I don't know. I don't really have like fear per se. It's more like I'll get like stress or anxiety about things. Okay, I lied actually. I have fear around money. A lot of fear around money, and it's something that I've like journaled about and like kind of had my own like therapy sessions with myself about. And it's something that a lot of people don't talk about, but I think a lot of people have fear about money.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people grew up learning to fear money. And it's such like a crazy thing once you actually start like unraveling it. But I grew up with, like I said, a dad from Morocco, and they lived well. Everything is like, you know, it's really different there. Things are cheaper, and they probably were cheaper back then. But, you know, obviously my dad came here before having me, and I think, you know, maybe for him it was kind of a shock going from things being affordable to living here. And so I kind of grew up with like the constant anxiety of like, we can't spend money, or we can't afford that, like there just being like scarcity. And then my mom, who's like an impulsive spender. So I kind of like you know, absorbed parts of both of them, and I think I'm definitely on the more frugal side and will always have the feeling of like being broke. But then on another level, and this is also going back to something that makes me really angry, I went to a private university for undergrad, which, you know, wasn't like my intention, like, oh, I want to go to a private school. I didn't really have like a preference, but I had been offered a good like scholarship package, which it did end up being pretty good, but there's a lot of costs that you don't consider before you go to college, such as like really high rent in Boston, especially near campuses. So I did leave that with student debt. I don't remember how much. It wasn't like an exorbitant amount, but it existed. And then I went to USC for grad school, which if I knew anything, I would never have done, because it actually is ranked the most expensive school in the country.
Oh my god.
And I was like laughing recently when that whole scandal came out about parents like paying to get their kids in there. Because I'm like, pretty sure they're letting in anyone that wants to pay.
Right.
So I don't really understand how that whole thing worked. But anyways, regardless, for anyone that's been to grad school or like knows about admissions and financial aid or whatever, you can get financial aid for grad school. And you can get scholarships, but they don't give grants the same way they give in undergrad. So, you know, for instance, I think if you just qualify financially, you just get a grant and like it's yours, like you don't have to pay it back. And so the scholarships that are available, I think there maybe have been like one really small one that you could get based on like grades or merit or whatever. But mostly it was like for minorities. And as I mentioned before, I'm not Black, I'm not Hispanic or like Pacific Islander or anything that I would qualify for one of those scholarships. So I just had a bunch of loans. And, you know, as much as I don't regret the fact that I essentially and like literally maxed out the loans for a lot of the semesters to afford living in San Diego and, you know, just having like the life that I wanted with having to stress so much. And granted, like actually it was a lot cheaper in San Diego than here. My rent was $850.
Wow.
For one bedroom. For one bedroom of a 2-bed, 2-bath, which is so good. 3 blocks from the beach, had a parking spot, like, and it was like a nice apartment. It wasn't like a piece of shit one.
Yeah.
But still, like, I wasn't working full time, and I think having the freedom to just be like a yoga teacher and kind of like do some other chill, like more or less side hustles while I was in school allowed me to actually really enjoy living there and travel, and like I don't regret that.
Yeah.
But I will be very candid and say that right now I have over $250,000 in student debt.
Oh my god.
Yeah, let that sink in. And it's not only like shocking to hear that, but the fact that I went to school to work in nonprofits means that A, I'm never gonna pay it off. I have no expectation or intention to. And B, it's like just so fucked up that someone going into that field can be allowed to have that much student debt. And like there's like a forgiveness loan program, but it means that after 10 years of paying on time, consecutive like 120 payments, whatever's left over they'll forgive. I'm like, I don't want to fucking spend 10 years paying all that shit. It should be forgiven from the jump because I'm trying to help people and like not get paid a lot.
Like, I'm a good person, take my loans.
So I'm like, do we really need to do this? Vote Elizabeth Warren, but yeah, so that pisses me off. And that also gives me a lot of fear that is like not always present. Like it's very much in the background because right now I've and don't tell anyone, but I got reapproved for an income-based repayment of $0 right before I started my job because I didn't have an income. So like I think the rest of this year I'm gonna be on that payment plan.
Hold on.
Let me know when you start.
Go ahead.
Shit, I'm like really short attention span.
It's okay.
I was talking about loans, right?
You were just saying.
Oh yeah. So I do have fear about it because if I like actually talk about it and start thinking about it, I'm like, okay, like I've gone away for a long time without having to like actually pay for them. And I obviously am like very vehement in believing that I shouldn't have to. But like there's a lot of things that we shouldn't have to do that we do have to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like really scared of what's gonna happen when like that reality hits. Because even right now, like I'm still living here at my parents' house because I'm not paying rent, and as much as I'm like dying to have my own place again, it just like made more sense for me to at least stay here for the rest of the summer and like have money to travel and do fun stuff, but also like have a few more months to save up for that.
Right.
So I feel like I'm on my way to like being financially responsible now that I finally have a job, even though it's not a lot of income. I'm like have a plan. I'm not just like frivolously like going on trips without thinking about the future. I'm definitely like a little bit more future oriented than I used to be, which is very much like a East Coast thing.
Yeah.
But also like at a certain level, like a growing up thing. So I'm like, I needed that. But no, it's like such a large amount of money that I can't even like wrap my head around it. So there's a part of me that like feels like, oh shit, like that's gonna be a lot, like that's gonna fucking suck. But then also on the flip side, like the mindset I've always had, which is the reason in the first place I took out the money, traveled with it, is like you don't know how much time you're like promised on this earth. So like what if I, instead of going on a trip, like saved up all this money and then died before I could ever like use that money to go on a trip? Or what if I spent a bunch of money on a trip that like maybe was irresponsible and then I had the great experience and then died right after? Like I would have rather died with that great experience and feeling like, oh, I'm gonna wait. Yeah. And then I always have also told myself, like, because I feel like money comes and goes and like a lot of times it feels like it's going more than it comes, that you shouldn't ever make a decision based on like financial fear. So it's like it's a balance that I'm trying to find, but I think that's something that like I've had to find on my own because I don't think it's been modeled for me at all, and I've had to be really intentional about like figuring out what works for me and what I should like realistically expect in terms of my own like financial future and planning. So we'll get there hopefully.